So, hello and welcome to this episode of UX Conversations, in which we invite our guests to share insights about the work and expertise in, and of course, about their experience in leading and inspiring design teams. My name is Aka Rudolph, the director of the UX Design Awards and head of strategy at International Design Center Berlin, the organizer of the UX Design Awards. In this episode, I'll be talking to Shruti Ramiah, head of design at Zalando, and coming on board for the jury of the UX Design Awards Autumn 2023 edition. So, dear Shruti, welcome to this episode. How are you?
Hello, Arthur. I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, let me briefly introduce my guest. Shruti Ramiah, you're an expert in human centered design, and your impressive career has taken you from Nokia at the beginning, where you worked on research and interaction design, to leading design consultancies such as DesignIt and IDEO, which I guess everybody knows, as a design researcher and design lead. And after 6 years in the agency business, you returned to the corporate field, but rather to the startups. So first on, you worked at fintech startup N26, which is a purely digital personal banking service here in Germany, and now I think one of the largest ones in the field. And of course, in parallel, you kept on teaching people centered research and advising international students at the Copenhagen Institute of Interaction Design, which is, maybe you can say a few words about it afterwards, which is quite an inspiring international course for interaction design, and actually also a school where some awards alumni come from. And now you're head of design at Zalando. It's a startup founded in Berlin, Germany. And in the last 15 years, I think it's grown to one of the largest, if not the largest, European online fashion retailer. That's quite an impressive career. And well, maybe let's start by describing how you started getting into design at all at the beginning. How did it begin for you?
Well, thank you for that introduction. It has definitely been an interesting journey. And one that I would not have predicted when I was at the start of trying to figure out the career path that I wanted to take. I came from a family that was very thoughtful about this. So my parents made me do this little exercise when I was almost 10 years, starting when I was 10, of like interviewing people who came home and asking them, hey, what do you do and what it's like and what are the main things that you work on? Maybe that's how I turned into a researcher. But that around the age when you make this decision in India, where I grew up, I was quite confused and pretty sure what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be a doctor or an engineer, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And we spoke with a really helpful counseling agency that helped me see sort of my skills and my interests. And I realized that I was keen on creative endeavors, but I also liked problem solving and some amount of structure. I wasn't an artist. And they actually pointed me to this, what was then a fairly unknown discipline in the Indian context of design. And then from there, it has been a bunch of twists and turns, mentors, and coincidences that have led me to where I am today.
So asking questions, it's definitely a good start for being a designer. And you did quite many steps in your career. But can you describe to us now a little bit what you do at Zalando actually right now?
Yes. So at Zalando, I'm a head of design, one of many. We are a 200 plus product design team, so it's quite large across the different business units. I work in the team that focuses on the business to customer experience. So if you go to Zalando.com or if you open up our app, my part of the organization is responsible for that. And within Zalando, I lead three teams. The studio, which is our team that focuses on helping to map out the future and make it tangible through the tools and methods of design. Design operations, which helps to build the processes and frameworks, community, and culture that holds us all together. and VOC, or Voice of Customer, which is our customer research team looking at both user research but also other ongoing types of measurements such as analytics and customer satisfaction.
So that sounds like three quite distinctive functions, although they are all connected to design. But how do you actually connect them if you have to lead all of them?
Yeah, I was discussing this with my manager just yesterday. They are definitely all very disparate if you look at them from a distance, but I think they use, or in many ways, they build on different skills I have. So when I think about the studio, it's very much a place that brings my agency life, my consultancy life into the in house context. And so it's a lot about bringing some of those approaches, but helping adapt them to being within the context of one business, and knowing what it means to integrate that work back into ongoing flow of work. So not getting so blue sky that everybody's like, "That's great, call us in 5 years." And research is very much informing both the ongoing work, but also this thinking about going into the future. And it's very much my background and where it comes from. Operations is one of the ones that seems more out of character, but for me, if you know me and you know me as a lead, I'm someone who's really invested in community and culture, and I'm making healthy workspaces. So I try to bring that to whichever team I work in. And with design operations, I have this opportunity to scale it beyond myself as an individual to the way we do things across many different teams, and setting in place processes, practices, also tools and methods for other leaders to build on and other team members to contribute to. So it's in a funny way, many dimensions of, I think, my own strengths and interests.
That's much more. I think what you described is about leading people and enabling people, which is probably also different than working at an agency at the positions that you had before at agencies. So let me. I don't know if that's a stupid question, but if you compare these two realms, agency work and working in a corporate that now Zalando is. What was the biggest maybe adaptation for you and the change that you had to do when you started or changed from IDEO, let's say, to N26, now Zalando, and how did you adapt to that? Because you were still a designer, a design researcher, and now you became a team leader and much more intertwined into corporate organizations. So can you talk us a little bit through about challenges, about how you prepared, where do you prepared, what helped you?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I think working in consultancy is great. And it was exactly the best thing for me to do at that point in my life, because for a person who's naturally extremely curious, it gave me new problems, new things to look at almost every 3 months, new domains to understand, new technologies, new types of challenges, and also new types of organizations. So every time you go to a new client, you're looking into how they're set up, what happens within their dynamics, how to make people successful within their organization. Plus, you do the process over and over and over again to really cut your teeth against the process, and you really know it inside out. I think a good moment, and the moment where many people switch out of agency life, is when they want to have more skin in the game. They want to see what they've built or what they've imagined come to life to some extent and really see it through. And that was the case also for me. So transitioning over, I think a lot of people thought or asked me even like, how's this gonna work? Like, is this super different? And I actually found myself feeling quite empowered by the skills that I'd learned within the agency life, the consultancy life. Because at the end of the day, even when you're within one organization, you have to do great stakeholder management. You have to listen to the people around you and understand their needs and what it takes for them to be successful. You have to bring the process and be confident in it, but also to be able to adapt it when you need to this new situation, this new team dynamic, this new organizational setup. So having seen it in so many constellations actually helps you be set up to adapt yourself to the new situation that you're in. I think the most important thing for me was, will I still be, will my curiosity still be fed, or will I get bored after a few months? Will it feel like same problem over and over again? And I think what I've discovered is there's no dearth of problems, and they keep changing and adapting, and you can keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. So there's not this kind of like, now I know everything about this thing and I can go home. That point really doesn't arrive, because the world is changing really fast, and there's always more to learn. So yeah, that I think that like there is a happy marriage between both those ways of working, and things you can borrow in either direction.
Okay, this is from problem solving in the design realm, and from maybe problem solving in processes to problem solving in organizations. Uh, is there is do you maybe if you reflect on this change from the design realm to corporate world, is there something that designers can actually do to prepare themselves if they go into that direction? Maybe it's not
It's
one
interesting
thing, but
that,
several, or is it a mindset?
yeah, it's interesting that you draw that distinction, because you're still a designer, and the job that you're doing is driving, championing, and bringing the same quality of work and quality of impact. A corporate is just a large organization, which has obviously the complexity that comes with it. What can you do to prepare? Maybe understand what that means and understand what kinds of expectations come with it. um, you will not just, in an agency or as a freelancer, you are your own master. And of course, when you work within any organization, whether that's 10 or 17,000 like Zalando, you have to align the interests of multiple people to be successful. But I think those are essentially good skills to build as a designer. We're all about collaboration, bringing people together, getting people to sort of buy into one shared idea of what good looks like or success looks like. So whether you do it with 10 or 100, you're practicing the same skill sets.
No, it's interesting that you say that because there is different opinions about I mean what design leadership means and the challenges or like the changes that it might bring in an organization because you well you mentioned stakeholder management, but it becomes something that becomes the biggest part of your life and or your work life, and much less about concrete projects and processes. But if you say that designers are predestined, also through the curiosity, openness, and maybe empathy, that's also so important in it, then I'll take it for granted. Shruti, but you're also a researcher at heart, so maybe we can talk about design research a little bit. And of course, it's not a scientific activity, so it's not about how you protocol the results or the findings. It's much more like a design activity. It's much more. So what matters more is learning what you need to know. Learning what you need to know means that you need to know what you don't know. So from your point of view, what is key when you start a design research process, and what is successful? What do you need to prepare for this design research process to be a successful one at the beginning?
Mhm. So, what do we need to make design research successful? I think one of the things you just mentioned there in passing is really important. It's not about figuring out the truth about humans. To boil down the essential truth about all humans takes years and years. There's whole disciplines dedicated to that, and PhD projects that go for decades. We're not in that business. We're in the business of understanding enough to drive decisions, which means going into any kind of research work, it's important to ask ourselves, what kind of decisions will we make? based off of this. If we can't state that clearly, we shouldn't start, because then it's just curiosity research, which too much of it, and then you're drowning in information and you don't know what to do with it. And the second part is, once you know the decisions you're going to make, what are those levers that we have, and what are our hypotheses of change or theories of change. So going into research, whether you inform yourself with desk research, with past understanding of the problem, or just coming to it with knowing who you are yourself as a person, that's the base experience that we have all, one human being. It's not the ideal set for making any decision, but that's why we do research. And starting from hypotheses, if like, I believe this is the problem, I believe these are the types of things that could where the solution could lie, I need to go understand these. And then as you go through the journey of the design process, this gets tighter and tighter, enabling you to ask sharper and sharper questions through the process, and also select the appropriate design research methodology to ask a sharper question, or to the number of people that you need to ask it.
And of course, there is no one stop shop or one process that fits all, right? So how do you select the process according to the product, the goal, the question that you have?
The starting point is the question and where you are in the journey. So are you trying to understand what the problem is, or confirm what the solution is? That's the biggest first kind of question to ask yourself. Do I am I trying to diverge or converge with this research? And in divergent research, we're obviously going to more qualitative methods, where we want to spend more time with people, and like you said, make more space for the unknowns, for the things that we don't know about, the things that we might discover that we hadn't anticipated, and kind of keep ourselves open. So you choose methodologies like in-depth interviews or observation, even highly underrated method. We can borrow tools from the ethnography toolkit, diary studies. These kind of expose us to more of the reality of people's lives. So being where they are, and then once you're more in the phase of like, we've built our hypotheses, here are some solutions, you start moving towards bringing people into where you are at. So showing them prompts, prototypes, concept sketches, or even later on, all the way through to evaluative research with usability testing, where you're sending and your design out into the world without the assistance of being there to explain, yeah, but that button, it could mean this thing. You're leaving it on its own, like it will actually in the world, to be used by people who can then tell you, that made no sense at all, I didn't understand that, or yes, it works, I get what you're doing. So first phase, you're going to meet the people where they are at, and second phase, you're kind of bringing people to your ideas and your solutions. And that's
And
super simplified. The world is not that
of
simple.
course, yeah, yeah, and of course there's circles that you go around, and you might realize that you have to starting off with just a confirmation. You must start asking questions and open up the problem space from the beginning on, if you're aware enough that you might need more answers and dig deeper. How about integrating research and design and development processes? Is there a certain methodology, timings that you think are key in order to bring design and development processes converge with research in a good way, and errors that you should be aware about?
Yeah, a few points on this. So, firstly, I really don't subscribe to the model that like engineers don't care. So there will be people who will tell you, just tell them what to build, and they'll build it. They don't care what's being built. Totally not true. They are also humans, and they care what they're putting out into the world and what impact they're having. And I've only seen positive response when you bring software engineers or analysts or any of the wider team into that journey. It's different to have expectations of them in that process, but just kind of exposing them, allowing them to have conversations, observe conversations, is only a some positive outcome. So That's one fundamental, like, let's invite everyone to the party. And then the second part is, in reality, research, when you're really doing meaningful research to shape your direction, it needs to run ahead of your development process. So you need to be always scouting the landscape and asking questions and figuring out where your next problem lies or where your next opportunity lies, asynchronously from what you're building and developing today. Because if you don't spend time and energy on exploring those areas, you'll only solve the obvious, or you'll only be in a reactive state towards what you've built. You cannot explore new opportunities. You cannot, explore innovative ideas, or look ahead into how the market is changing. You're just kind of solving what's in front of your nose. So it's really important to build this research buffer into your planning, whether it's on like a small agile team scale to an organizational scale. We need to, of course, researchers need to support with evaluative work as well, but we need to enable them to go ask the bigger questions where we don't know what the hypotheses are right now, so that we can bring in those early ideas and early opportunities into the more rigorous than product development processes that we have.
So it's fair to say that in a design and also in a development process, there might be research phases intertwined and cut in at certain stages as well, according to the needs, right?
Yeah. So when I look at, if you have one researcher working in one team, I would always think about them having two tracks of work. So one is in sync with their team, where they are feeding in the research in the right moments. Oh, we're trying to make a decision on this design. We're trying to make a decision on whether this is ready to launch. And the other is out of sync, ahead of their team, where they're investing 30% of their time to start exploring and running ahead and doing things that are like beyond what is on the map right now. But this can be hard to argue within resource constrained teams, but in the end, this mindset does pay off, because you're better prepared for the future. You're better prepared for making long term decisions and not just short term ones.
And that's a very, very clear description, I think, of two tracks. Like one staying on track with designers and programmers, and the other one is looking ahead, a bit like sprinting ahead, scouting, coming back with results or new impulses. How to keep this on track? Is this about describing a certain goal together with all people who are involved in the process in terms of a common understanding, or is this something else that might be really key to develop there?
So, first baseline you need to establish is everybody is aligned that understanding the user is what gives us our next big bet. Of course, that's not the only input, but it is one of the key inputs, and we want to invest in getting it on board. Um, the second part, I think, is it's kind of funny. It was a bit true for designers as well. They also need to run a little bit ahead of engineering in order to not be at, like, give me a screen, and then they're developing it on the spot, on the moment, but they have reflective space. So there's kind of different speeds within a team, and I think this requires a certain level of like understanding and respect of each other's disciplines and what we contribute at which stage. Doesn't throw the whole thing off sync, but it's just like we're not all in the exact same moment at the same time, but we know what our rituals are, or what decisions we're making together at a certain moment, so that we can come together with the same mindset. So we don't come to say a meeting about future research with the same mindset as when we come to an evaluative research meeting. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but ask me again. Let me think about it.
But what about the mindset? I mean, how do you build this mindset? Because there is different goals in teams according to functions. Some people might, and it's not even about being a programmer or a designer. It's not like that, but it's different people and different approaches and their personalities. So my people might just want to go for a solution because they just they see, a spark or the end of the tunnel, and somebody else might want to pose a lot of questions. Um, how do you create this common understanding and the mindset that you mentioned?
I think so. For first key is hiring people who align with your idea of how product development should be done. But then, of course, is building the same language and understanding of your approach organizationally, and having shared artifacts or shared processes that you refer to and say, this is how we work. But there has to be flexibility, and same thing you learn from consultancy. Everything doesn't have to be solved the same way, right? Like, don't turn everything into a nail because you have a hammer. um, you're really convinced this is the solution, and the fallout, the risk of this decision is low. How are you going to know you're right? Maybe build in the measurement possibility or the metrics to allow you to evaluate your decision, rather than doing the work upfront to find the evaluation before you launch. This is also acceptable in my book, because sometimes the price of waiting can be that high. The price of missing the timing can be that high. So I think there's a lot of judgment call in a lot of this work. It's, if it was mathematical and perfect science, more people would do it well. And that's where also good leadership and good guidance from leaders comes in.
And that's probably where you are right now, right? Because you know the design research and designing work from scratch, but now you're in the position of having to align people, and most importantly, I think also to align people from other functions such as business, marketing, whatever, with design goals, and that's probably the where the difficulties might come in. There's always a talk about people in different functions using different languages, different choice of words, and that matters really, because it's about understanding, it's about building
Mhm.
understanding. So where you are right now, what helps you to build that understanding, especially talking about different functions, about reaching out to leadership in different levels?
Mhm. Speaking specifically about Zalando, that was one of the things that I was also curious about joining such a large organization that had a reputation for having a mature product development, product management practice. We do have a very defined product development process with, you do a press release FAQ at this stage, these are the stage gates. So we have this backbone of really established language and practices that we can work together on. But of course, everybody interprets, so there's always room for experimentation and interpretation, and that's a good thing. What helps me in these conversations is, again, I think, going back to design research skills, arriving with an open mind, arriving with an honest sort of openness to listening and learning, and standing in the shoes of the person in front of me. What are they trying to achieve? What are their blockers and challenges? What is their team asking them or their manager asking them that is resulting in them responding this way or making this ask of my team or myself? And then being able to kind of negotiate from a position of understanding rather than from this is my approach. I think that I have always believed in being pragmatic about these things. Where language gets in the way, let's adapt it, let's change it. There's no need to be perfectionist. The goal of the shared language is to align us. If it's preventing us from understanding one another, then it's failing and we should change it. So I think the skill sets of just being a researcher are actually quite meaningful in these situations as well.
And is there a way to create a common language, would you say? I mean, what apart from language, of course. I mean, we're talking about language now, but then there is the language of numbers, as you said. There is the goals, and so it might be very different. And other people might be akin to actually be won over by arguments, others by numbers, by goals, by KPIs, whatever there is. So, is there something that designers or you found also was really helpful to learn in order to win over through the
Mhm.
language of other realities, functions, people for design decisions?
I think that the tools we have there are around storytelling and vision setting. So we need to come together to agree where are we trying to go, what does success look like together, and what's the impact we're trying to have. And that's where um, we can set aside our individual kind of um, interests in order to line it all up. So aligning language or aligning process is more about setting a mandate for a team, setting a mission, helping them understand why they're all there, and what are we trying to get to? What is success? What does success look like? Um, that's when I think you can start to, once you get over that there's a perfect right thing that we're all trying to somehow uncover, there's a truth out there, which is it's
Mhm.
all, you have your version, your version, your version, these are all good versions. If we're trying to go here, can we agree this and this? These are the pieces, the ingredients that we need to agree on in order to work towards the shared goal. That's what I think gets you to agreements or to alignments. The the um the vision piece is not simple though, because I think you can have, again, that needs to speak to different audiences. So you can have for designers a beautiful UX vision set of screens or prototype. We need to translate that into what will change for the business metrics, or what is the the my what is it called, the uh, the core metric that you're pushing towards, like it's customer lifetime value or engagement or whatever your core
Brand
metrics are.
recognition, you name it. Yeah.
And you need to convert that to, yeah, like what is good for what are engineers seeking to do, because they might have process
How
metrics
does
that
it
they're
connect
measuring
to
towards. So
other
there's a lot of,
products? Yeah. Mm.
exactly. And I think the risk is coming to it with only one tonality and losing the others on the way. And then everybody, I think when you have this falling apart is when you've expressed it in one way, but you fail to speak or tell the story to more groups within your audience. So it's storytelling, but it's again recognizing, meeting people where they are. If the story that appeals to them is going to be in numbers, then find those numbers, because that's your job as a leader.
So, does it take many rounds of meeting people, first of all understanding what drives them, and then creating the imagery, whether it's really an image, whether it's a vision, whether it's numbers, whether it could even be like a structure that you can draw and show how it connects to people. Do you develop the, which tools do you use that help you to create this understanding? I mean, we through Corona we started to work on Miro a lot, and it's so intuitive. It's so easy. Even managers can start from scratch, working together with people from design, other fields, and draw, connect dots, comment. There's tools that help you, and
Hmm.
visualizing obviously helps a lot. So, what do you use?
Hmm. I think so. Whatever tool you use, um, we obviously use different things. I mean, back in the day, I remember doing synthesis just on a big board with lots of sticky notes and trying to cluster things together. Now it seems quite unsustainable to do that, or not good for the environment. But the tool, I'm a bit agnostic of tools. I think the tools will come and go, they will change. But what we're trying to do is sense making, and sense making works differently for different audiences. Gathering the data, putting it together, I think there will always be a group that needs, you will always need to express yourself in words. So there will always be something written up and explained in a document. I think what we can bring to the table as designers, what is unique to our ability to, is that ability to envision in a way that people can actually touch it, feel it, experience it. Like prototypes bring things to life in a way that words would never achieve. They help people see the same thing when the words would have allowed you to imagine three different versions. Um, and then, of course, the data is something that you have to find an expert to help you with that part. But the tool is not so much the important part. I think I've used a whole bunch of different tools all across, and I'm sure there will be new interesting ones coming in the future. What's important is that you extract the narrative out of it, the stories that you want to tell.
There's a thing that I'm wondering about. I mean, we're always talking about user-centric design and focusing on users and our target groups, but focusing on this one, maybe user group exclusively is also a way to forget about the wider context of these people
Mhm.
and the situations they are in, and that's extremely difficult, of course, understanding or imagining these situations, but it's quite important. Otherwise you can fall also into a tunnel, maybe, where you only think about the product itself, and you might come to a point where you stop realizing that an outcome might not be sustainable or even unethical. So
Mhm.
how do you work to avoid this falling into tunnel thinking, and how do you bring the wider context in a design process, in a product development process, of course, as well, and how
Mhm.
do you bring ethics into such a case, especially working in a very fast and highly commercial environment such as Zalando, for instance. I don't know if you can share something about this.
Mhm. So on the first part about user getting really centered on the user, I think that's also this is a case where I'm a little finicky about language, but I'm also willing to have the conversation. I said I practice human centered design. Some people say people centered design. If you speak with folks at CIID today, they will say life centered design, because why should humans be the only organism we focus on within this planet? I think some might argue that is the problem, that we don't focus on the balance of different creatures and life forms. So, absolutely, we need to not take this user lens. It's also a political act, because at the end of the day, we don't need to just see people as consumers, as people who take up whatever we serve to them. They are making a choice when they come to us, and we have to earn that choice every time they come. And when we when we think about our products or whatever we're working on, like I said, with how you do good research, the first thing to do is meet people where they are, not look at the whole world through the lens of your product. Set it aside and go outside and talk to people in their real lives where they have never heard of you, or you form 1% of their brain capacity on one day of 1 month. So really kind of not centering from the position of what you are building or what you're trying to sell or convince people about, but starting from what is the problem they're trying to solve, what is the need that they have, or maybe it's an opportunity that you can present to them. So really starting from where people are at is, I think, important, and not looking at the whole world through the lens of your product alone. On the question of ethics, um, more than sort of getting into a tunnel vision, I think it's a tunnel vision around success and what success looks like for an organization. How,
About it,
and again, going back to what
how do you define it really?
vision,
Hmm.
Exactly. What is that number on the top of the mountain that you're trying to climb towards? And of course, let's acknowledge most of us work at companies that need to make money, need to make a profit, um, and they're not philanthropies. But at the same time, there needs to be an active dialogue about at what cost, and what are the guardrails or the lines that we will not cross. I appreciate, for example, at Zalando, that we have a stated diversity and inclusion strategy and a stated sustainability strategy. That doesn't mean that we're always going to hit the mark and that we're going to be perfect. But what it does mean is that as someone working at this company, I have something I can point to and say, this is what we said we want to achieve, or this is a bar we set for ourselves. How are we doing against this? Is this decision I'm being asked to make paying into this or taking away from it? And just having the agency to have those dialogues is, I think, what enables us to have even a discussion around ethics. It's a sticky topic. It's a topic that's, some would say subjective, some would say not. So I think the path to navigating that is not by painting pictures of black and white, but really it's going to be a lot of gray. But what are our lines? What goals do we want to set for ourselves so that we can have those discussions and we enable those across the organization that we're leading? You also don't want a situation where everything gets always rolled up to the top and there's one leader on the hook always to make the calls. You want to enable everyone to make good decisions, and that's what values, setting clear goals and guidelines for some of these sensitive topics helps you to achieve. Um, and at the end of the day, I think encouraging a culture where it's okay to say, I don't know, and I'm a bit confused, or I'm not sure if I did this right. So, not punishing people for when they're vulnerable about their confusions and asking them to have 100% right answer always, so that when someone in your team is maybe tackling something sticky, they actually think it's okay to come to you and say, I'm not sure we're doing the right thing here, or I'm not sure um, I made the right decision. If we don't create that psychological safety, then there's no way someone will speak up when they feel they've made a questionable decision or they are faced with a tough choice.
Yes, brings down this somehow a little bit blurry question about work culture or corporate culture, really to something concise and graspable. So it's very similar, I think, to how you described about creating a vision for research, for a goal for of a product. It's the same about creating for the entire organization something that people can relate to and they can attach to, maybe some kind of light in the fog. As you said, everything is gray and you have to find your path and be able to find your path, but also have people to help you if there is a positive culture involved. So
Mhm.
something else, completely else maybe, but what you described is also a lot about values and about what people expect when they start working, and something very important also about brand culture and company culture. And you've been teaching, you've been mentoring designers for many years. And maybe you can say a little bit about CIID. I mean, it's an open, it's not a classic school, right?
Well, what is a classic school after all? I think, yes, in some senses, it's not what you would consider a very classic university program. That's also why they seek people who are probably more prepared for this, some more mid career folks, or those who are making transitions in their careers. But Copenhagen Institute of Interaction Design, sadly no longer in Copenhagen, but based out of Costa Rica, is a program that was born out of folks that were initially at Ivrea in Italy. And it really brings together some of these ideas around human centered design, life centered design, interaction design in its early days, but in a very multidisciplinary sense. So bringing together what we call digital product design, but also tangible UI, so working with things, service design, all of these almost as mindsets, and expands this discipline to something really broad. And makes you, I would say it's again a school that teaches you about mindset, how to approach problems, how to try and break them down, how to see the world through this kind of lens, rather than training you on specific craft. There is obviously an element of craft, but there's this strong confidence in the people that come to the school that, like, when you encounter a craft you're not good enough at, you will spend the hours to do it. And one of the things that really marks the community out is that it's a very small group, so it's very tight knit. A lot of the work is done in teams. So, again, speaking to the fact that most design is done in collaboration, and all the teaching is largely done by people who are practitioners. So, not by people who are 100% teachers, but more people who are sort of working in the flow of where design is at today. So yeah, it's a very interesting program. I obviously graduated from that myself. So you know, of course, I love my alma
I
mater.
didn't know that.
And
Mhm.
yes, I did. I did my master's there. And yeah, it's really fun mentoring students from the program, especially on their final projects, because it's a big change for most of them. They go from having worked on most things together with others to suddenly having to work on their own. It leads to a small existential crisis about, what do I care about in the world? What do I want to do my final project about? And I find it fascinating to um, look at the different themes that come up in these final projects, because I feel like it gives me a sensor of the topics that people are caring about, of what younger people are caring about. I mean, the group is not necessarily young, but I think that space to explore gives you room to reflect on the current world, the climate, the place where the world is at, and leads to interesting themes in the projects that come out.
So, what do you observe there? I mean, it's not about trends, but you mentioned that there is directions, that there is things that you see, and so I'm keen to know, because of course in the awards you also have a
Yeah.
new talents section, and there's different
Yes.
opinions on the projects that are there. But what is your take on, let's say, the younger generation of designers? What do they care about? What drives them?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm usually very hopeful after these interactions, because I feel that they, young people today are very values driven and have quite a strong internal compass. I know that life will probably challenge that compass, but that's okay. That's how it's meant to be.
As long as you still have a compass, that's okay.
Yeah, and I guess what we should be doing in these moments when we meet young practitioners is to say, keep that compass strong and keep it pointing north. Like, don't let the winds of job and career and trying to find your next opportunity sway it. I've seen interesting trends over time. There was one year, I think, where there was a real emphasis on social media and how it was going to evolve. And that was, I think, in 2014 or so. So I think we were also seeing this shift in the types of media, a lot of debate around Facebook around that time. What was it called? The Arab Spring had recently happened, and you could see in that reflection around, um, what is the purpose of digital media? What happens with this? It was a very interesting project around what happens to my digital presence when I die? Then recently, I've seen more around AI, obviously, because we're all kind of grappling with that. I think I'm expecting to see AI, ChatGPT, et cetera, in the awards this autumn. So I think those are definitely themes that are omnipresent. I think it boils down to humans and technology and whatever is challenging our ideas of technology today, because that's what interaction design is fundamentally about.
Yes, and I think when I look back from the works that we have been seeing in the juries in the past years, definitely some of the stuff that you mentioned, social media consumption, awareness, self-awareness, mental health has become a big topic, and a very well, apart from socially inclined work, also in the healthcare field and about
Mhm.
maybe marginalized groups or about giving access to people. Also, a lot about sustainability, of course, and about
Mhm.
creating services that help people actually adapt to a changing situation. But also, what's been noted very often, there was a very, very high level sometimes of design quality, research, thinking about um, how this final product or service could look like. Is it something that you agree on?
A really high quality around envisioning and sort of making tangible. Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the fun things is seeing how far people can take their mock-ups and their prototypes and really making the experience as real as possible. I've seen some really interesting uh, sort of demos and examples and people taking technology to new heights. But also, on the other end, I really appreciate the times when you do this kind of um, fake it till you make it solutions. Behind there's just somebody pushing the buttons. But if it helps you understand the experience and if it helps you make it real for the person who's experiencing it, then it works for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we also fake it in our work area, and I think quite recently I even wrote about Chipperfield, a famous architect, just got enormous prize for architecture. He said at the beginning of his career he faked it, just to get along, and so as long as you know how to then continue and make it into something real, it's okay, I guess. But I'm
Hmm.
wondering, so
And you can
from your,
elicit.
Mhm. Sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say, and you can get support. You don't, it's not a solo sport. We are not in the world of hero designers, You don't have to do everything, but you have to know what you can do and get the right help.
So I'm wondering, and talking about UX design again, in context of the awards, is there certain skills that you think will become more important in the future for people to learn? What will help them in their career?
I think the fundamental skill I would tell any designer going into work today is a few things. One is this kind of what we talked about, the compass. Like, how are you going to train your compass and use your compass? Because as designers, we have great potential influence on the world. And the second is training your flexibility, because in our own careers, I'm sure you've seen it as well. The landscape of tools, the landscape of technology has changed really fast. It's going to continue to stay that way, if not faster. If you start today and think, oh, I'm going to learn Figma to perfection and then I'm sorted and I never need to learn another tool, that's totally not true. So, what you need to learn better is how do you learn, and what's your way of onboarding new skills, trying new things out, training yourself. So, getting into a growth mindset is probably the best thing you can do for yourself, because there's always going to be new things, new aspects you need to learn about, new technology that's being developed. So, finding your approach to getting into these new topics, and then having your compass to steer you to the right things for yourself.
So how does this relate to maybe do we need more generalists or more specialists in design? Because we very often say, we need generalists, but in the end, people very often means specialists. So what do you think? Or is there no distinction really?
I don't I don't believe in this dichotomy actually. Like, nobody can be good at everything. So there's no truly good generalist out there. So then if you're saying generalist, you're essentially saying someone who has a good understanding of the breadth of the work, which I believe every designer should have. You should have a good understanding of the whole process, be able to make your way through the whole thing. And then ideally you have a spike or a strength in one or two or three particular areas where your passion is stirred, your curiosity is, intrigued, or your skills, you're in your flow space, give me a screen to work on and it's my happy place, I'll do it on a Friday evening, whatever that is, or talking to a customer makes me be in my happy place. Whatever your spike is, everybody's going to have those. Over time they will change, as your role changes, your spikes need to shift. I obviously don't happy place nerd out in the same things that I did 6 years ago. So I don't really distinguish this generalist specialist idea. And I prefer to think of people as like whole people with many different aspects, many different strengths, personalities, interests, all of that they bring to work.
Yes, I really like this approach of yours and this response of yours about us being flexible beings that shift between states and not really people that are in a this or that cupboard, let's say, or area. I think that really nails it. So be flexible, keep on learning, and also always remain open, as you said before, because it's also about this will to discover and the happiness of learning, which drives people. So I'm wondering, now you've seen so many shifts in your career and areas that changed. I don't know if you ever thought of this, but how do you see your own work field change in the future? Maybe in the next years, what will become important there? What will change? What
Yeah.
will disappear?
What will disappear? Oh, I think so. I mean, there's a lot of talk, right, about, and we've seen it already, how much we are able to rely on technology to solve things that in the past we would have spent hours doing. Apparently, ChatGPT is really good at coding, at least predictable problems. So if you give it
It's really good at
web
translating also and writing. I mean, it really helps. It's an
translating,
assistant.
writing. Yeah, I recently saw a colleague sent me like a AI enhanced text, and it was truly enhanced. So, you know, I'm not afraid, but I know that this will change the landscape of what we do. I think what for myself, what I think I constantly am doing an exercise in my brain is trying to understand what are my core skills, what is the core value I bring, what fundamentally makes me happy. And in the end, I believe I could practice that in many different domains. I could bring those same skills to different environments. So I constantly do this little exercise of like, what's my next career going to be? Just as an exercise to see like what I believe my strengths are or my interests are at the moment. Um, and also, I think that the time of doing the ladder, going up and becoming more and more and more senior till you retire one day, that journey is done and dusted for at least our generation and the generations to come. So we have to think more creatively, and look at our life, our work life, our life of work as a portfolio of like, what are the things I want to invest my time and energy in. Today it's this, what does it give me in exchange? It feeds my curiosity, it speaks to my interests or my values. Tomorrow it might be a completely different set of jobs.
So is there an idea that you have about yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself?
Honestly, I don't know if I'll be a designer in 5 years.
What then? Or
I
maybe
don't
that's
know yet.
still for
And I
me.
think that I think the um, it's an interesting uh, what do you say, like a thought experiment to say, do you see yourself 5 years out? I've never been someone who plans that far ahead because I think the world changes too much. But not being stuck to that idea of like a specific role or place helps me to navigate. And the vision that I try to work towards is more this kind of portfolio of life rather than a specific goal or specific outcome. Um, but yeah, that's a little bit of a cop out. I think the in 5 years from now, I'd like to be, if I think from a portfolio perspective, even more aligned with my values in what I do, and still working in teams and still working with people.
Could be designed. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be designed, but I think we'll leave it as a flexible, always changing life as we all have, and we shouldn't get too stuck on what we do. I think that that's something I would take out from your answer. And of course, now you're also a jury member, so I'd like to know a little bit about what you expect and maybe what's interesting for our audience above all, what you expect from participants in a competition, especially when it's about UX. What do you want to see from them? What do they need to present so you can judge or evaluate a project?
Hmm.
You think about this?
I, yes, and I think it's a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today. So, starting with a thoughtfulness about the problem, a thoughtfulness about why does this need to even exist, and what does it serve, what function, what value does it bring to the people that it serves, or the organisms that it serves. Maybe it's not for humans. A sense of engagement with the values and that inform it. So whether that's sustainability, that's your core value, whether that's efficiency, that's your core value, that you've engaged with it, and how have you then navigated that, the choices around it, and and yet balanced with a quality of craft, because at the end of the day, um, good design comes through good experience and good craftsmanship, and that needs to also show in the product. It's not just about thinking, it's also about making, and that making needs to come at a certain quality within the experience as well. I'm personally really excited to look at the student work, or the young participants work, again to feed this curiosity about what is this group of humans thinking about, what is interesting for them, what are the themes coming through. So I look forward to that very much.
Well, thanks a lot. And we're looking forward to sharp conversations and argumentation, and hopefully also surprises and yeah, stuff that we might be something completely new that we might see. And it's up to you out there. If you're working on great experiences, then send them in, and we'll be very happy and looking forward to see your submissions. So, Shruti, I mean, to wrap it up, it's been a great conversation, and we should make maybe a second installment on some other topics as well. But for now, is there a place where people can find out more about you apart from the jury website of the awards?
Yeah, I'm almost incognito on the internet, but the LinkedIn is where you can learn more about my professional sort of background and where I've worked at, and where I tend to promote the work of others who I think are doing interesting things. So if you follow me there, you'll see what I find interesting as well.
And something that you want to maybe push over to our audience, something that really inspires you? Is there something that you're reading at the moment, some kind of medium, something that you really want to recommend?
Honestly, I bumped into this book by chance. I'm sure you've heard of Brené Brown. And
No?
she has done a bunch of work on shame and the psychology of shame. She has a TED talk that's really famous about this. And by pure chance, I ended up reading Dare to Lead, which is one of her books on leadership. Not surprising. Um, and it is revolutionary. I think it was really eye opening for me and unlocked a lot of things also for my personal life and my personal self understanding. So I recommend highly this book. And I love that it comes with a workbook alongside it. So that I find that very apt for designers. We can do little exercises next to reading a book. That definitely helps us. So try out Dare to Lead if you're trying to understand yourself as a leader and your challenges.
So, dear Shruti, it's been wonderful talking with you, and thanks a lot for this conversation. We could go on forever, but unfortunately we can't. So I'm looking forward to see you on the jury again, and that's where we will have more room to discuss again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really looking forward to it.
Wonderful, likewise. So that's it for this installment of UX Conversation. And I hope that you enjoyed that talk, that you enjoyed listening to Shruti Ramiah. And if you would like to see more, there's interviews, news, events, and of course, more information about the awards on uxdesignawards.com. You can also follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. So that's it for today, and hopefully see you very soon again. Bye-bye.